Madagascar, the fourth largest island in world of southeast of the Africa, which is also known as the Malagasy. The country of 28 million people is politically heated. Six people are arrested on the charge of involvement in this accident. Among them are two French nationals. Two of the denied were said to have served in French military. Many say there are foreign hands behind this incident. Political instability in Madagascar is not new, and foreign intervention is not new there. Throughout the country's history, there have been the political shift in foreign rule. But why are the other countries so interested in this poor country on the coast of Africa? In this video, we will know.
In an article in Financial Times, Kenyan political analyst Nazoala Nibuola questioned whenever Madagascar had actually survived the colonial period. In his analysis, there has been a power struggle between Anglophone or British American group with Francophone or French influenced group for decades. He explained, however, that conflict was essentially a geopolitical rivalry between France and Britain for 2 centuries. President Ravalomanana, who won the 2002 election, received a lot of support from the United States for Madagascar. Incuban President Rajoelina shouted refugee at French embassy to avoid the political arrest during the 2009 political unrest in a bid to oust Ravalomanana. The French news agency AFP said the French rescued Rajoelina at the behest of United Nations. Hundreds of the supporters of then President Ravalomanana protested outside the embassy. Naebola said that for 200 years the fate of the Madagascar has been decided in Western capital. From the 19th century onward, the rivalry between the French and British over the Madagascar intensified. The French engineer Jean Baborda was appointed the chief engineer of state of Madagascar and built the Rova Palace of the Wood for the royal family in the capital Antananarivo. In competition with this, the Scottish missionary James Cameron built the palace with stone. Another French businessman, Jean-Francois Lambert, made a trade agreement with the king of the Madagascar, which was later used to subdue Madagascar to the French. Influenced by the European missionary, in 1869 the king of the Madagascar declared the Christianity to be the official religion of the kingdom. Europeans designed the country's educational system. The British were responsible for training the country's army. The intention was to prevent the French from taking control of Madagascar. The law of the Madagascar was made in style of British law. Court also built in European style. In 1883, the French declared the war on Madagascar on pretext of violating the Lambert Charter. This war lasted for about 13 years, occupying some areas north of island. The French built Dio Suarez naval base there. To force the surrender, the French Navy sailed the two main seaports from the capital, occupying the some area north of the island. The French built Diego Suarez Naval Channel Base. To force the surrender, the French Navy sailed the two main seaports from the capital, Antananarivo, to the seaport of Tonacina and Mahajang. When that did not work, The French sent the troops and fired heavy artillery at the capital, and Antanavio, forcing the French to surrender to Queen Ravalonia III. In 1896, the French declared the Madagascar a colony and forced the royal family to immigrate. Thus, the Madagascar came under the complete control of France. After fall of France to Germany during the World War II, the British sought to take the control of French-held territories around the world. The argument was that the German would take control of them. In 1942, the British occupied the Madagascar on the pretext then the Japanese could land in the Madagascar. Although the British ceded control of the island to the French, the independence movement in the Madagascar began in 1948 at the end of the war. After the fall of the French to Germany during the World War II, the British sought to take control of the French-held territories around the world. The argument was that the Germans would take control of them. In 1942, British occupied the Madagascar on the pretext that Japanese could land in Madagascar, although the British ceded the control of the island to the French. The independence movement in the Madagascar began in 1948 at the end of the war. The French suppressed the revolt with strong hand, and almost a decade later, Madagascar were forced to peacefully accept the independence from the French. Madagascar was declared an independent country in 1960. The French appointed Philippe Sirana, the country's first president. He ruled the country for 12 years. In his time, the French citizen controlled the important office in Madagascar. As a result, a massive movement took place in the country. From 1917 to 1975, many coups took place. In the end, the power went to Didier Rassikanac, a naval officer. Ratsikanka studied in Paris and began his career in French Navy. Although he led the country toward the socialism, he soon proved that he had never left Europe. Madagascar also received the loan from the World Bank and IMF after falling into economic trouble. He lost power in 1992 election, but returned to power in 1997. In the 2001 election, the mayor of the capital, Mark Ramavonia, came to the power. Ramavonia is a Protestant Christian from a poor family. In Madagascar, almost all politicians are Catholic. The Protestant church in Madagascar was founded by the British. He studied at Protestant church, ran educational institution, and in Europe with Scandinavian NGO. Ravalomanana was elected mayor of the capital, Antananarivo, in 1999. Then, in 2001, he became president with 51% vote. When he was re-elected president in 2008, he received 55% of the vote. He used his business power to fullest in election. Many believe that Ravalomanana tried to make Madagascar out of French influence and into the British American zone. However, Andre Rosalina stood in the way. Billboard business Rosalina used her business power to enter the politics. He bought the Viva television in 2006 and started working against the government. At the age of 33, he became the mayor of the capital. In 2006, President Ravalomanana shut down the Viva television. Within the day, Rajoelina rallied opposition politicians in Madagascar and took thousands to the state. At a political meeting in January 2009, Rajoelina announced that he could lead the Madagascar from now on. In March, when the army sided with Rajoelina, the president Ravalomanana relinquished power and shouted refugee in South Africa. According to the Reuters, in an African radio interview, Ravalomanana alleged that the France was trying to take control of the Madagascar through Rajoelina. In July 2006, when the Ravalomanana was president, French ambassador Gildas Le Delac was expelled from the country. Although Rajoelina took power, the African Union or AU and Southern African Development Community or SADC called it a coup. The United States the begins evaluating its Madagascar embassy. The IMF defers Madagascar debate. According to the Reuters report, Rajoelina was forced to accept SADC mediation in Maputo, the capital of Mozambique. He became the interim president. The referendum changed the constitution, raising the age of presidency from 40 to 33, so that Rajoelina could run in the next president election. However, Rajoelina was unable to run in by-election and due to the opposition from Ravalomanana's group. In 2018, the Harry Rajanarimanevia won the presidency with 50% of the vote in the support of Rajoelina. However, in 2016, the Rajoelina took power in the election. His main rival was Ravalomanana, the referent candidate of the British and Americans. The Rajoelina became the president with 39% of the vote in first round and 75% in the second round. Ravalomanana received 44% of the vote. An article in World Culture Encyclopedia says that Madagascar political leaders have been addicted to French culture since the 19th century. Although the people of country speak Malagasy, French is official language of the country due to the influence of colonial period from 1896 to 1970. Attempts to remove the French language at various times have failed. During the 1948 independence movement in Madagascar, the French rebels were severely tortured. About 90,000 people died in that movement at the hand of French and their colonial force. The rest survived that physical account of the torture. Many feel that even after 60 years, the Madagascar has not been liberated from France. In a 2006 study by London School of Economics, sought to explore the effect of 1948's French autocracy. They say that the French persecution of 1947 has made the people of the Madagascar lose the courage to speak out. In other words, the culture of the people of the Madagascar has changed. It is not the memory of the heroes who took part in the war that is ingrained in the mind of the people, but the French barbarism. Almost all of the Madagascar powerful men have studied in France. Otherwise, they have business with France. Otherwise, they have worked under any organization in France. Of the country's 71 years of independence, only four presidents held power for 48 years. Philippe Sirana, the country's first president after 12 years in power, studied in France and was elected to French parliament in the 1950s as a representative of Madagascar. President Dr. Rashikara, who took power in 1975, was an officer in French Navy. His father was an officer of the French colony. He was in power for 21 years. The remaining 15 years are shared by the pro-British Ravaloman and French-influenced Brazolina. Madagascar is a poor country with an average per capita income of less than 1,800. Ready-made garments, fish, spice, etc. are the country's export produce. They import most of the industrial products, consumer goods, and food items. France once had most trade, but now it imports the most from China. However, the France is still the largest buyer of the Madagascar products. The World Bank say only 15% of the country's population is covered by the electricity. Far from the changing the destiny of the people's country, the country is immersed in the geopolitical competition of the great power due to the importance of the country's geographical location. France and Britain have been the main player for a long time, but now United States, India, China and many more have joined. With the arrival of the Vasco da Gama in Indian Ocean in 1498, the surrounding area of the South Africa became important because this was the way from the Europe to the Indian Ocean. Any trade, logistical, or military base on this route can control the trade between the Europe and Asia. In the 12th and 17th century, the Portuguese colonized the coast of the Madagascar, Tanzania, and Kenya in East Africa. The Dutch settled in South Africa in 1852. In 1815, the French occupied the island of Mauritius, east of the Madagascar. In 1806, on the pretext of the war with France,